Okay, I was gonna start this introduction in the great outdoors because once again, it is a beautiful, gorgeous Saturday in Virginia. I spent the whole morning gardening, so I will show you in a minute what I was busy with there. But as I was standing outside of my yard, some bee thought that my shirt was actually flowers for a minute. And I was like, yeah, no, these are not real. I am not the source for your nectar today. So I came into my car. Anyways, let's get started with the weekly wonderings and wanderings. So today, I was gardening this morning before it got super hot. Now I have to go run a couple of errands, and then we are heading up to my in-laws' house to celebrate my husband's birthday because yes, both our birthdays are in May. It's a little early for his, but we're going to celebrate today because that's the time that we have. And that is my busy day. The week coming up, Monday through Thursday, I don't have anything extra going on. Should be pretty normal days. But my husband's birthday party for my side of the family will be on Friday at our house, so I will have to be prepping for that and getting ready for that. And then my sister's coming in from Kentucky, and so I will be spending some time with her. And then our Saturday, we've got a lot of stuff going on next Saturday. So, but that's doesn't have anything to do with this week. That'll be next week's vlog. Anyway, that's what I got going on. I am reading The Pearl. I will finish it this week. I started The Medicine Woman of Galveston, and I have some thoughts about that, but I will talk about that later. I don't know if I will finish it or not. It's on, what's the word I'm looking for? Not tribulation, not perturbation. Probation. It's on probation. I think that's the word I mean. I mean that it better not go any further, okay? More on that later. That's what I'm reading this week. What else will I pick up in the last week or so of, well, 2 weeks really of May? I don't know. I have an empty slate, honestly, once I finish reading these books, so could be anything. We'll see. My morning's work. My boys got me some flowers for Mother's Day, so I planted them today. And I planted these petunias in this pot. They're different colors. There's red, white, and then like a pinklish, new word, purple-ish one, and I actually don't know what that one is, honestly. But they've been sitting on my inside, and I just now got around to planting them. So, but they'll quickly bloom back up and hopefully fill out this pot nicely. Probably I needed one more for this pot, but it came in a set of 4, so what can you do? My boys also gave me some marigolds, so I planted those. I have 4 of those also. Planted them in my front flower bed. And then I also, you can't see anything, but I planted some zinnia seeds back there. I've never grown zinnia from seed before, so, but I love zinnias. So I picked up a packet of seeds from Walmart a few weeks ago, and I was like, well, we'll give it a try. Love zinnias. And finally, also got a dahlia from my boys. I was gonna put it in a pot, but the only pot I had wasn't quite big enough, so I planted it in the ground here. It's so pretty, I love it. This I did not do today, but this pot of pansies is growing beautiful. I have some pansies in other pots that aren't doing quite as well, but these ones are just gorgeous. Hello, it is Tuesday evening, and I have some things that I need to get done, but first, I've got to update you all because I have been reading. First, let me show you. This is the current edition of my red, white, and blue drink that I am concocting for the teachers for the last day of school. I always give it as a teacher appreciation gift. We're getting there. Clearly, I need less water when I make the strawberry puree so that it stays on the bottom and doesn't like float up to the top. And also, I need more blue in the foam because it's supposed to be blue. But other than that, I'm getting there. The cold foam is the best I've made so far, even though it's not as blue as it needs to be. And I made it blue with butterfly pea flower tea, which is fun. So, reading. I've done a lot of reading. Okay, I read the Coquette, which I already told you guys about last week, I think. But it sent me down a rabbit hole. Oh my goodness. I got so interested in the whole thing. Because first of all, it was based on a true story. So I started looking up the true story and all of the characters involved, the actual people. And what's fun is, like, it's one of those historic mysteries that's not ever been able to be solved. Even though a lot of people have, like, a lot of pieces of the information, there are just key details that nobody knows and no one has been able to uncover in all of this time. So we just don't know what happened. So very briefly, I'll try to be brief. Elizabeth Whitman, who, by the way, was super well connected in the Revolutionary times and the colonial times. Her list of cousins was like a who's who of Connecticut and Massachusetts. Anybody who was anybody was related to her somehow. Except for maybe the Adams. I don't think that she was related at all to the John Adams. She was related to the Quincy's, I think, though. And she was related to the Jonathan Edwards. She was related to people who were senators and congressmen and judges and leaders in the army, and even some on the British side and the French side. Like, she knew everybody and she was related to everybody. Anyway, so this girl, Elizabeth Whitman, woman, she was 37 when this happened. She ended up in a town in Massachusetts, pregnant, and claiming that her husband was going to join her soon, but he never did. She gave birth to a stillborn baby, and then she died of tuberculosis. Tragic story. The innkeeper put a notice in the paper which alerted her friends and family that she had passed away. And she insisted until her dying day that she was married and that her husband was going to come for her. And she insisted that she be buried with her wedding ring. No one has ever been able to find a record of her having been married. So either somehow that record got lost, which happens, you know, when all of the records are kept on paper, fires happen, things can get misplaced or whatever, but nobody could find any records anywhere where she lived where she could have gotten married. And then also nobody knew the name of the guy, so that complicated issues. She claimed it was a Mr. Walters, but everybody assumes that she was making up a name. And so if she got married, it was secretly. Maybe she thought she got married, like maybe the man convinced her that she was getting married, so that he could, you know, have his way with her, so to speak. Or maybe she just lied to save her reputation. And maybe he was planning to come to her. Maybe they were planning to get married. Nobody knows. And that's part of the mystery. Like, who was the father? And were they married or not? Everybody wants to know. And everybody's wanted to know for 250 years. It's been almost 250 years. It's been a great mystery. People, 100 years later, were digging into primary sources and documents and trying to figure this out. And looking up memories and records of people who had known Elizabeth Whitman and finding nothing. I'm just so fascinated by this whole story, mostly because she was so well known and yet nobody knows what happened and how well connected she was. It's just fascinating to me. And then I've been reading these, I can't remember the names, but I'll try to link to them in the description box if I can remember. I've been reading the research of people in the 1800s, like 100 years after the fact, who are trying to figure it out. Multiple people wrote about it. Even to this day, there are research papers in university databases that I don't have access to. They're behind a paywall. But I can see where people still today, historians are researching her story and trying to figure out what happened. So I'm fascinated by it. And so it got me down this whole rabbit trail because in the course of like stumbling upon these papers and researching who all the different characters were and what, anyway, I discovered there was a whole genre back then that was extremely popular in colonial United States around the time of the Revolution. There was a hugely popular genre of scandalous seduction fiction, which sounds way worse than it is, because the Coquette is a prime example of it. And the plot is somewhat salacious, but there's nothing about the story itself that's even remotely. In fact, it's more of a cautionary tale than something that's, I guess it gets salacious and gossipy in the sense that people, since it's written and they know it's about a real person, even though it's been disguised and the story's been changed and altered and whatever, like there's still that element of gossip that is attractive, cloaked as a cautionary tale or, a morality tale. So anyway, I find it so fascinating, and I've been reading the research books and like booklets, like they're not real long. Well, the one I read was like 230 pages, but they were like little short pages. So like little short research where people were just detailing all of the facts that they were able to collect and trying to come to conclusions about exactly what happened with poor Elizabeth Whitman. So that was interesting. And I found 2 other novels that I want to read that are on my potential TBR for Red, White, and June. And one is oh my goodness, I'm totally going to butcher the title, so I'm not even going to try. I'm going to put it in the description box, and it will have been in my TBR video, which hopefully will have gone up before this point. But yeah, or maybe that will be this week, actually. I'm not sure what my video schedule is, but that might actually be this week. Either way, I'll get the titles to you, but there are a couple of other novels, these types of seduction novels or whatever. Sorry, I hope the wind is not making it too difficult to hear me. We've got a storm coming in. Anyway, I want to read those novels just because, I don't know, I guess probably for the same reason people back then wanted. Like, I want to know the tea. Like, give me the dirt on these people, because they're like based on true stories. A lot of them, it seems like. So yeah, that's the truth. So that is one thing that I have been reading of late. The other thing is, oh my goodness, guys, The Pearl by John Steinbeck. Johnny boy, did you have to do that? Did you have to do that? You know full well you did not have to do that. You didn't have to go there, and yet you went there. And you didn't just go there, like you went there forcefully and with no holds barred, and you just like blew it right open and made it as catastrophic as possible. Really? Was it necessary? I personally don't think so. However, I have to say, I ended up giving it a 4 stars. But I feel like in terms of like being an impactful book, it deserves 5 stars. And because of the amazing writing skills, like the magnificent writing skills, 5 stars. But let me tell you why I brought it down. 1, because the ending. I mean, I didn't expect a happy ending because, John Steinbeck has a reputation. Didn't expect a happy ending, but I did not expect a catastrophic, tragic, heart-rending ending. So the ending. But primarily the reason why I don't want to give it full 5 stars is because I think thematically he muddied the waters a little bit, and I think he could have done better. So that's the primary reason I'm actually knocking my rating down 1 star. So here's the thing. It's based on a Mexican folktale, and the moral of the story, it's like a fable. The moral of the story is that greed can become all-consuming. It can become an obsession, and it can lead to evil. I mean, it's basically like a parable of the verse that says the love of money is the root of all evil. Like, it's the parable of that. And in this case, the money is a pearl of great price that our main character Kino finds. And it's all about how everything gets destroyed. Everything that touches this pearl is just destroyed. So the problem is he muddied the waters by the position that he put Kino, our main character, in. Because Kino is like an indigenous person trying to eke out a living for his family, for his wife and his son. He's trying to keep body and soul together. He's trying to keep them sheltered and fed. And his son is in danger of dying, at least he thinks so. And so he goes pearl diving, which is his source of income, and he finds the most magnificent pearl anybody has ever seen in their little village. But unfortunately, the whole pearl buying system there is a racket. And it's, what's the word? It's corrupt. It's a corrupted system where the men who actually risk their lives and do the pearl diving never get their money's worth for the pearls, because obviously the pearl buyers want a huge profit from it. So because they are in positions of power and because they work together with each other against their customers, there's not any real competition. So what ends up happening is these pearl divers don't get their money's worth. And so there's this system of oppression being set up. And I don't use that word lightly. It's overused so much today. People feel like they're oppressed because they can't buy chips at the grocery store. Like, first world problems. It was genuinely an oppressive system. Kino was put in that position, and yet he is the focal point of this illustration of the love of money being the root of evil. And possible spoiler, his desire to get the full value for this pearl destroys him and everything that is dear to him, and I'll just leave it at that. So I get the point. I get what John Steinbeck is trying to say, and he makes it very pointedly. Like, we get it. We get it. It's very clear what you're trying to say here. However, I don't think Kino is a perfect illustration of it. I think it would have been better to hone in on some other characters in the story who were truly driven by motivations of greed and avarice to the point of oppressing other people and defrauding other people for the sake of lining their own pockets. And they were truly evil. Kino becomes that because of the way he responds to the situation, but he's put in a situation where he doesn't have a lot of options. So it's more like desperation and frustration are the root of his sin than a love of money. Like, he just wants to be able to provide and protect for his family, which are good and noble things to desire. And so I feel like Steinbeck muddied the waters with his thematic elements here, and that's why I knocked it down a star. So those are my thoughts about the Pearl. But wow, really excellent writing. I definitely will read more John Steinbeck. I will put armor on before I read it, because I think it will be necessary. So that is an update on my reading, and this was a really long clip, so I need to cut this short. But then again, I probably won't have much time to film later this week because I've got a lot going on. This is a crazy week for me, so this may be where it ends. So we'll see if I have time to update you with anything else that I read this week. Bye. It is Friday morning, and I am at home because I am playing hooky today, and I'm going to go with my sister into DC. But first, I want to show you the birthday cake I made for my husband. So his birthday is next week, but we're celebrating it tonight with my family. We celebrated it last week with his family. And growing up, his mom always made for everybody's birthday in their family a caramel cake, which is basically just like a vanilla or yellow cake with caramel frosting. And this is like a vintage kind of caramel frosting recipe that his grandmother started making. So for his dad. So it's a whole family heritage sort of thing. And so it's actually quite a delicious frosting. We all love caramel in this family. So there is my husband's cake. The actual cake part is the vanilla cake recipe on the King Arthur cake flour box, which is a fantastic cake recipe and super, super easy to make. I love it. If you use the cake flour, like it turns out perfectly every time. Anyway, so that is my cake that I made for my husband. And then I'm gonna go into DC and see what kind of trouble I can get into. But before I head into DC, I just wanted to film a final clip for this video with reading updates. First of all, I have been reading a book that I haven't mentioned at all because it wasn't like something I was actively reading, trying to get done, etc. But let me explain. So, on my Kindle, I have so many books, and some of them have been there for a really, really long time that I've just picked up randomly here, there, wherever, for whatever reason, probably usually free or like 99 cents or something. And every time I am out and about and I'm waiting for someone, or I'm a passenger in a car or something, and I don't have an actual book with me, but I have my Kindle, if I'm not actively already reading something digitally, then I am trying to read some of these ancient books that are on there. Okay, the books aren't usually ancient, it's just they've been on there forever. So, you know, at some point I got them for a reason, so I just want to read them. Anyway, so this is one of those books. It's called Miss Wetherham's Wedding, and it's by Linore Rose Burkard, and it's just a clean Regency romance, and that's about all there is to say about it. It was pretty good, actually, better than I expected, because I had picked up another one by the same author that had like a time travel element, and I had DNF'd it within the first 2 chapters because I did not get along with the writing, and I felt like it hadn't been very well edited, and I don't know if that one had been independently published, perhaps. I'm not really sure, but this particular one, it was fun enough, and it was well written enough that I kept reading. And overall, I enjoyed it. The plot kind of reminded me of a Shakespearean play, like a romantic comedy by Shakespeare, because you had these 4 characters. It was kind of a bit of a love square in a sense. But our main female character is kind of down on her luck. Her husband has passed away. She's a widow, and she's living in genteel poverty, trying to make ends meet by matchmaking, but she needs to maintain her status in society in order to be a matchmaker, so she can't outright charge money, so she's kind of at the mercy of the generosity or lack thereof of the people who utilize her services. So she's facing a really hard times, and then there's this really fabulously rich guy, of course, right? And he contacts her for her services, and he pays her handsomely for her, and this is the bit of the twist, for her to distract another gentleman from the woman that he is pursuing. There are some things about the story that I didn't like. Primarily that the man who is hiring her for her services, her matchmaking services, he doesn't actually want to marry the other woman in question, even though he's paying her a ton of money to distract the gentleman away from her. He just doesn't want a rival. And I just didn't like that. And that part never gets, like, it's never reasonably explained in a way that puts the gentleman in question in a better light. I didn't like that. But it does set up this whole kind of, I don't know, almost a farcical thing where they're trying to, like, all of the different people are trying to deceive each other, and this person thinks that person's in love with someone else. And anyway, and then of course the right people end up together at the end of the story, all's well that ends well kind of situation. It wasn't one that I would like highly recommend, but it was fun in its own way, and it wasn't a waste of my time. I didn't DNF it. I didn't hate it. So it was fine, like a 3-star, 3.5 stars maybe. So then I did actually have a DNF, and I was really sad about this. So for Chantel's Read Your Bookshelf Challenge for May, the prompt was to read a book with a place in the title. And so I had a whole bunch of options. The first one that I gravitated towards was The Medicine Women of Galveston. But I only read the first couple of chapters, and I didn't want to continue. And I think it's probably a fine book. I think that a lot of people would actually really like it. But the very opening scene was a medical emergency involving an injury, describing gushing blood and all of this stuff, and mangled limbs and all of that stuff. I don't do well with that. I have a bit of a queasy stomach when it comes to that sort of thing. I don't like reading about it. So immediately I was like, that's not really my thing. And the main character, she has a medical background, although she's, again, another character down on her luck and forced to work in a factory to make ends meet. But she has all of this stuff going on. So it's, I think, early 1900s, maybe late 1800s. And she has a son. I want to say it's an illegitimate son, but it might have been, her husband might have died. I'm not really sure. But anyway, she has a son and he has Down syndrome. She's trying to make ends meet so she can provide care for him. And she's desperately poor and working in a factory. She was fired essentially after botching a surgery when she was an intern. Although there's a backstory there that makes me think that probably it wasn't 100% her fault. But anyway, she's haunted by scenes from that, which again is another medical trauma thing that you keep experiencing together with her as she remembers it. So she's dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder. Of course, not called that at that time, but that's what she's dealing with. And as a result, she has the other condition, the name of which I forget, where she's constantly pulling her hair. And all of this stuff is like a lot. I read the author's note, and basically when she was researching for this book, she was like, oh, Down syndrome. Yeah, I should include that in this book because I guess the gentleman whose name is given to the syndrome was alive at the time that she's writing this story. And then she's like, oh, and this hair pulling thing, like I don't read a lot of books about that, so I want to include this issue in this book. It's a very issue driven, and the poor female main character has all of them. She has all the issues, mental health and all of this stuff going on. Story seemed very issue driven. Our main character had more burdens than I wanted to read about at the time. I just wanted something, not, I don't mind a heavy book, but like, I don't know, laden down with all of that stuff at one time. And I didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel for her for a really long time in the story. And so I didn't want to sign up for that lengthy story about all of that trauma, tragedy. And also I didn't want to keep reading those scenarios of medical trauma and surgery, etc. On top of which, I didn't realize when I picked up the book or when I initially heard about the book that it was less about actual medical care and more about most of the story, or a good part of the story. This woman is part of, like, she joins this team with this medical shyster basically, who he's a quack and he's selling like snake oil, which was a popular thing back in that day. And so she knowingly joins up with him, even though she has an actual medical background, she has medical training, and she's, you know, as a main character, like, you're supposed to feel sympathetic toward her. And I guess all of her issues are meant to give her a reasonable premise for joining with this guy, even though she's a woman of character. I don't know. It was a lot for me. If it had been like that she was just a female medical personnel in Galveston during the time of the flood there that happened, like, that's what I was interested in. But I don't know when in the book she even gets to Galveston. And when she goes there, I think she's as, like, in her guise as a snake oil salesman. And so, but then she actually has an opportunity to use her medical skills to help other people. I like that part, but it seemed like it was a long way to get to that part. And I'm sure it was a fine book. I don't want to be negative about the book, honestly. Like, I'm not trying to say there's anything wrong with it. I just wasn't wanting to sign up for that right now. But I don't want to say that it's a softie enough either, because I'm not sure I'm ever really going to be quite in the mood for all of that. So pretty sure I'm not. So I think I'm just going to unhaul that one and choose something else. Well, actually, I already chose something else. So I chose this, Silverhill by Phyllis Whitney. Silverhill is a fictional place. It's actually a house in, where are they? I should know this. New York, maybe New York State. I should know this. I'm sorry, but I don't know. Anyway, and it's a bit of suspense. Phyllis Whitney is compared to Mary Stuart and Victoria Holt, if you've read anything by them. And I just loved this vintage copy that I picked up somewhere. And I have a lot of vintage books that keep calling my name and I want to read them. So I picked this one up next. I gravitated toward that. And already I'm much more interested in this one than I was in that other one that I gave up on. So I am currently reading Silverhill, but I won't say any more about it because I've already talked a lot in this vlog and I need to wrap this up. So in my next week's vlog, stay tuned. I'll tell you more about Silverhill. And also, last night, I was in the Pink Lady Sprints hosted by M at M's Books Are Everywhere. And she had designed this bingo. And the board that I almost had a bingo. I had one spot left to get a bingo. And the spot was Gabrielle Meyer. And if you watched my recent birthday haul video, you may have seen that, actually, I don't think it was in there. I don't think that made it into that one yet. I think that's going to actually be in my next haul video. But anyways, Jamie at Read Brucey, she has an Instagram. I think it was, I don't know if I already shared it or not, but she gave me this book, Into a Golden Era, book 7 of the Timeless series by Gabrielle Meyer, which is a series that I have kept on top of because I've really been enjoying it very much. So, yes, that was the last one I needed for a bingo. And I was like, oh, well, I wanted to read this book in May anyway. I had completely finished all the other books that I was working on, so I only had Silverhill and then this one to add to it. So I was like, why not? So this is my fun read, one of my fun reads for May that I've been anxious to get to. So I started this one last night and I'm a few chapters in and enjoying it. Of course, we're just getting kind of set up into both worlds of our main character, the timelines that she's in. So it's very interesting. There are a lot of references to Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. And I know that Taylor is doing a read along right now of that, which I didn't sign up for because I had too much other stuff going on, although I love Little Women. But anyway, I thought that was fun. A lot of references to Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. So anyway, enjoying both of those reads. I'll talk more about them in my vlog next week. And for now, I will sign off and I will see you next time. Bye.